So, this is Buckley.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, for anyone watching, he was a legendary DJ, did the Hacienda, Ibiza, Renaissance. How did you end up DJing at Hacienda?
Well, the short answer would be that Graeme asked me. Tom was away. It was in '91, and I wasn't really playing anywhere at that point. I don't think I wasn't really, no. And so yeah, Tom went away for holiday for a couple of weeks, and Graeme phoned me up and asked me if I'd like to stand in for him. But a little backstory to that would be that I'd moved to Manchester. I moved to Manchester at the end of 1990, and excuse me, I'd made myself known. I'd become friends with Mike and Graeme.
Yeah.
And I was living with a guy called Cass, and he was friends with them both, but he was also their driver. And on a Friday, Mike would always come back to the flat after the Hass, and on a Saturday, Graeme would always come back. And so they knew that I was into music. Well, they knew that I had decks. They knew that I was DJing, because when they'd come back to the flat, I'd always be playing after the Hass.
Yeah.
And I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there was, I guess I was the likely candidate to ask, like close to hand, because I didn't really know too many people that had decks and were DJing that were actually playing in clubs and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So kind of happened like that, really. I had, obviously, it was something that I'd never even imagined that would have happened. You know what I mean? But that was the first, no, actually, it was the second time. I'd played once before, not long before that, literally in the space of a couple of months, for In the City. Deconstruction did a night, and Kevin Dawson, who was head of A&R for Deconstruction, I'd also met him through Mike Pickering. He used to come back to the flat after the Hass on a Friday, and he was doing the programming for it, and he was booking all artists that were on Deconstruction.
Yeah.
And they asked me to play. So I played upstairs in the main room with K-Class and Bassheads and a couple of others on like a Thursday night or something. So that was the first time. And then properly was the 2 Saturdays that I stood in for Tom.
Yeah.
That was the first kind of in. And then, I don't know how long after that. I think I played again in 92, a couple of times. I can't really remember, but it became a regular thing after the 11th birthday. So I must have already been playing anyway, because the lineup for the 11th birthday was everyone that had played the club that year.
Yeah.
Minus a couple of Americans who hadn't played, but they were like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You know,
What year was that, the 11th?
Well, it was my birthday is the same day as the Hacienda.
Yeah.
So the Hacienda's 11th birthday was my 22nd birthday, so that would have been 93. But
I think I went to that.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I must have already played the club that year for them to book me, because everyone that was playing had played there that year.
Yeah.
But that was also Mike Pickering's last night. He left that night over some trouble that had happened, and people was about to take off and stuff, and he was just ready to leave. So when he left, Russ kind of stepped into Mike's slot, and I kind of stepped into Russ's slot, really.
Yeah.
So that's how it then became a regular thing. But after Mike had left, it was all a bit sketchy anyway. Me and Russ were just scratching around, filling, I guess, really. I don't think the club knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
And then...
It closed for a bit, didn't it?
It what, sorry?
It closed for a bit,
It did close for a bit, yeah. But I couldn't believe my luck that I was in there. But then I can't remember how long afterwards, but we both got sacked, basically.
Yeah.
I remember getting a phone call, and it was like Paul Mason wanted to meet me in Salford Quays somewhere in some bar. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. I've made it.
Yeah,
gonna get the manager of the club wants to see me. And when I went, he basically said, oh, we've got to let you go. I was like, oh, right, okay.
Did they give you a reason?
No, they didn't. But so me and Russ, we both went. And then the funny thing was, Tim Lennox and Alistair Whitehead took over.
Yeah.
And really quickly it was packed again.
Yeah.
It was mobbed, and it was like, all right, well, fair enough, because it wasn't packed when we were doing it. It was kind of dwindling. But I can't remember what happened. It didn't seem to last for long. I know Alistair was like becoming massive as well at that point, so it was hard for him to be committed, I think. But pretty quickly I got asked back, and then for a while it was like me and a guy called Roger Quiller. I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I'd forgotten about like how long we were doing it for until some people had sent me some flyers and stuff. And the flyers, like, you know, your weekly host, Roger Quiller, Buckley, and then you got your guests that were playing with us. So I'd say probably maybe from like 2003 to 2005, a bit sporadic, but I was well in the thick of it there. I was playing for them a lot. Yeah. And then on top of that, I was playing loads of tour dates for them as well, like Ministry of Sound, when it had not long been open, Cream, did the ICA, London, loads of other places as well, actually, Birmingham. So I was, you know, I was on the roster and I was getting involved in a lot of things that they were doing, as well as playing dry bar. Yeah. And doing slots downstairs as well in the Gay Traitor. And they opened that other room, didn't they? There was like another little club that kind of became Bobby Langley's thing. Yeah. I remember playing in there quite a few times as well.
How did you, I always like asking your first Ecstasy. Like, how did you get into it?
So, well, I've been to the Hacienda a couple of times. I think I've been about 3 times, kind of like on the trot. I mean, that in itself is another story. You know, when the first time I went to the Hacienda, I'd had a red window pane, and we didn't know what we were going to. We knew it was a club that played house music, and it was some girls from Blackpool who had met a mate of mine, and so basically they were like trying to get off of these girls, and it was like, well, look, we're Blackpool, you're Leeds. There's this club in Manchester called the Hacienda. It plays house music. It's in the middle for both of us. Why don't we meet there? So we went over there blind. All we knew was that it was a club that played house music, and there weren't really much happening in Leeds. And
so you didn't know anything about the Hacienda?
No.
What year was that?
89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just went to this
so
club
we just
that you
went.
about?
We just went blind. So it was just like an assault on the senses on like every level. Yeah. The whole thing was exciting. I'd never had a night out outside of Leeds, so I'd only been to Manchester once before in my life. So to get in a car and drive to another city for a night out was a big deal anyway. I think I was just about, I think it was the beginning of May, so I was just about to turn 18. I remember we had a massive heat wave that year, and it was, even though it was like beginning of May, the weather was already amazing. I remember going over the M62, listening to Jeff Young on the radio. He was playing a few housey bits and stuff, and you could just feel it in the air. There was like an excitement. We got into Manchester, and we were just asking people for directions, you know, where's the Hacienda? Yeah. And eventually, you know, we got there, parked around the corner, got out of the car, seen a guy putting an air-on down his pants, you know, and we were like, what's going on here? And he was like, where are you from? And we were like, Leeds, where are you from? He's like, Blackburn. And we were like, what's going on here? And went round the corner, and there it was, massive queue and everything. So we were, we just had the window pane as well, so and this is like early on, because I think it was like 9 till 2, wasn't it, the opening hours? Yeah. And I think we'd got there probably at about 7 o'clock or something, because I knew we queued for quite a while, and the queue were already massive.
So you dropped the window pane at the start of the queue?
We came up on the window pane in the queue, like tripping. And just that in itself, being in the queue, like Eddie touched on it as well, which not surprised me, but it was just nice to hear that someone that's from Manchester was kind of saying, echoing kind of what I felt and thought when I were there. You know, just the excitement in the queue, windows rattling and all that, and just thinking like, God, what's happening here? Yeah. And the mixture in the queue as well, like how everybody looked. There were so many different looks right across the board, from people looking like Pasadenas in suits and big lapels and all that, and spats and jazz suits to you know, a bit of a baggy look, and kind of everything in between. It were really mixed. And so we get in the club, and obviously that was amazing. It just blew us away, and I had the bug like instantly. So I think I went for like the next. We came back the next night, not realising, because we went on the Friday, so it was nude night. Yeah. We just thought, oh wow, this club's amazing. Right, let's come back tomorrow. It's going to be the same. Yeah. And it was good, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't nude. Yeah. And I think I came for like the next 3 weeks on the trot, and I just thought it was the best thing ever. And then I was speaking to a friend of mine who had also been a friend from Leeds called Martin, and he was like, "You're not had an E in there yet?" I was like, "Not had an E ever," and he was like, that's what that club's about, is that you need to have an E, you know, you need to. So we did. So it wasn't my first, it was my second E was in the Hacienda. My first E, we didn't know. So straight off the back of this guy telling us, the next week, so he told us that on the Saturday, the next week on like the Wednesday, we found somebody that sold some, and there were white caps that were like amazing. But we didn't know. We got back to my mate's house and we cut it in half and we tipped it out and threw the caps away. We didn't know what we were supposed to be doing. And I kind of got it, and we went to the warehouse in Leeds, but it was really quick. It just came up really intensely and just like really amazing. But then just went like that, and it was like, wow, what was that? And then it was the next time when I went to the Hacienda and I did one there. That's when it just went to another level.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's what this is about.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was hooked. I was like, I didn't even think about doing acid again. I mean, I did do, but but it wasn't on the radar from then on. It was like acid, never mind that. It's all about the ease, really.
I've been like, you've been sending me pictures, and I keep thinking that I bet that pill changed his life, because you've just gone from Hacienda to Renaissance, Ibiza, and it just looks like this guy's had an amazing life.
I did, and it did change my life. I mean, everybody says it, don't they? Everyone goes, Hacienda changed my life. But it did, like, on so many levels. You know, I was thinking about this. Do you remember there was actually a drought of ecstasy at the beginning of 1990, right? And my little theory is that that's when the ecstasy changed.
Yeah.
Because the ecstasy, even though I wasn't around for 88, I missed that. But what I'm aware of and what I did witness in 89 was whatever was around was only in small doses. It wasn't manufactured on a huge level in this country, or that we were aware of. You know, pills had come and there'd be different batches all the time, and they'd sell out. There weren't like loads of them, and they were around for months. You know, it were pretty common to be like, oh, whatever we had white caps and they're gone, we've got to wait another week for them to come. You know, they weren't just on tap like thousands like they became. And there was a drought.
Do you think that could be to do with Jeff? Because Jeff went down in...
Well, you know what? It could well be. And there wasn't really anything, because this coincided with Blackburn, and all it was, if you remember, was like speed bombs. There were still loads of pills being sold, and they were still being sold for 20 quid a pop. But they were just, I mean, we were buying them every week and we knew they were going to be shit. But it was like, well, we'll take that gamble just in case. But me and all my crew were like in depression. We were like, we'd never even questioned the fact that there might be a time might come where you can't get them.
Yeah.
Right? And that lasted right up until about May, when the brown biscuits came along, and they were in 1990. And as far as I'm aware, and in my circles and the people that I knew, there'd been nothing before that. Even like I became partners with somebody, and I won't say his name, and the guy that I became partners with...
I'll get his pictures to pop
Yeah. The guy that I became partners with, before I became partners, he was like the main man in the Hacienda.
Yeah.
On the... at Nude. I think he'd been doing it in 88, but he was the main man in 89. And he was serving up to some gangs there as well, or some Manchester gangs, and they were letting him do it. And they were also letting him sell in the club. So he was serving up to them in hundreds, and they were serving up to people that were selling in the club and letting him do it. But this coincides with it, because when that drought happened, he didn't come to the club for like 3 weeks or something like that. And then when he came back, they broke his nose and gave him a punch and said, you owe us 3 weeks money, protection money. He was like, well, there's been no ecstasy. And it was like, well, that's another story. You still owe us the money. But the point was that went on, that drought.
Yeah.
Yeah. And up until the brown biscuits. And I don't think that they were never the same again after that. They were still amazing. I'm not taking anything away from it. All those pills that came afterwards, brown biscuits, red and black caps, red and yellow caps, New Yorkers, all that, they were...
Did you give it the name New Yorker?
I did give it the name the New Yorker.
How did that come about?
Because I've never actually said this to anyone, because I never thought about it. It's true. So the drought lasted until about the middle of 1990, as I said, and when the brown biscuits came along. And then I went to Ibiza with this guy, for the first time. I'd never been abroad before. We went to Ibiza. We spent most of the summer there. When we came back, the situation was still the same. It was still a bit dire. And we dropped right on our feet. And I had this sweet period for a couple of years where we were the only people that were getting them. Other people were getting them, but in some shape or form, they were ours, they were coming through us. Yeah. Because my mate had a contact, and he said, he was actually also connected with one of the guys that, remember the Blast Off rave in London?
Yeah.
Because we went to London to meet the guy.
Yeah.
So he was like, look, we've got these pills. Nobody else has got them, certainly up north. He was saying this more to my partner, right? And he was like, you're the only person I'm going to give them to. This is what we're going to charge, and you can charge whatever you want, because there's no competition, and whatever happens, everybody's going to make from it. And so we were the only people getting them. So we started with the New Yorkers, right? So I came back from Ibiza in September of 1990. Literally within a couple of weeks, we had the first batch. And when the guy that were giving them, when we were getting them, they didn't come with a name. He'd be just on the phone. He was like, oh, we've got some red and black capsules coming up next. And we'd be like, let's call them Dennis and Menaces. You know, it's what rocket science, you know, followed with the red and yellows. It was like rhubarb and custards. Yeah. But when the New Yorkers came, it was me that said, they look like those pills that back in 89 that they were calling New Yorkers. Why don't we just call them New Yorkers? So then you like that to whoever it is that, you know, we're like, oh yeah, I've got some pills coming in a couple of weeks. They're called New Yorkers. And then they're telling their punters, yeah, we've got some pills. They're called New Yorkers. So when they came, there they were. Yeah. So yeah, I named those pills of the late 90s.
Copyrighted.
Yeah, I copyrighted it.
Yeah.
And then took it one step further when they turned yellow. I was like, yellow New Yorkers. But yeah, so we named them all. Really, they never came to us with a name. We were naming them. And what happened was, I had a period from coming back from Ibiza in September 1990 till September 92, when it all came on top. For those 2 years, between me and my partner, we had it sewn up from Blackpool to Huddersfield to Leeds. We were flooded. Sheffield, Birmingham. We were doing everywhere, basically. Yeah. But by this point, we weren't really having to get his fingers dirty either. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We had other people doing it. It's like, when I moved to Manchester, I wasn't doing anything in Manchester. Yeah. That was the whole point. I got so paranoid because it just became so big so quick. We didn't realise. We come back. I was on my arse when I came back from Ibiza. I came back without a penny and nowhere to live. Yeah. In 3 months, it was like a full turnaround. And I remember one day just being at my house in Huddersfield, and I was just like, I said to my brother, I was like, oh my God, what have I called on here? What am I in here? You know, it just happened so quickly. Yeah. But I got over it, and I was like, right. And I was already in Manchester all the time anyway, and I just started seeing Carlotta, who I'd met in Ibiza that year, and everything was just pointing to Manchester. So I decided to move there. But also knowing, as the saying goes, you don't shit on your own doorstep. Yeah. You know, and I'd already been worded up from my partner. It was like, you know, stay away from this person, stay away from that person. You know, also we weren't gangsters, and we didn't have no crew. You know, we were just doing our thing, and it was like, you know what this city's like. So it was like, you can't be, you know, out of town throwing it around. It wasn't like I were in the Hass saving up. We were saving up to people that were saving up to people saving up. Yeah. We're on that level. Yeah. So for me, Manchester was safe. I was like, well, I can come here. I'm in the club every week. I've got money coming out of my ears. I'm having a great time. I was only still 19. This went on from 19, 20, 21. Do you know what I mean? Still really young. And so I did do a bit here, like, because it became, well, I got pally with a few people that I knew were safe. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And there was, I can't say his name as well, but one of the people I got warned to, like, don't ever get into, don't let this guy get to know you. Yeah. Because he was behind the guy that set it up, my partner. Right? Yeah. So, but somehow this guy did find out who I was, and he took a shine to me.
Yeah.
And he liked me, and he'd turn up at my flat every now and again, and I'd be like, you can't, it's not like I can't tell him he can come in, you can't come in, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he was a naughty character, but he liked me. And as I said, I never did anything because, you know, you were just wide open to be taxed or whatever, do you know what I mean? And
do you know in Jackie's video, so she mentions that Manchester got dark and moody. I think like 91 really, wasn't it? And then Leeds took over, didn't it?
Yeah.
And I love that photograph you sent of, you could tell the story, the shaving foam. There's you, Sasha, John Digweed.
Yeah. Well, that was Tony Hannon, who used to put on events. He did Up Your Ronson and Soak and Chaos. And Sasha and Digweed were playing, and Digweed didn't get off his nut. I was there when he had his first pill.
Yeah.
But I don't think he ever
got...
got...
You were with him when he had his first pill?
Yeah. We came and played Renaissance, but I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
So that's a funny story. But yeah, it wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
And Sasha's a monster.
Was it?
Oh yeah, still is. But I think he probably won't mind me for saying it. It's no secret. I mean, we all were. To be fair, we all took it to the extreme because we could. It was like we weren't paying for them. They were cheap as chips. You didn't even have to think about them. You know, you mentioned Gooey earlier. We used to session. We'd just be like, "Oh, go get another 50. Go get another 50." We'd all just throw them in like 50 pills, you know, in flats. Throw them in, and we weren't charging anyone. Do you know what I mean? It was like everyone could have them. Sorry, where were we? I lost.
Sasha and Digweed and shaving foam.
So there were a little stage, pretty snide really, but there were a little stage going on where if you went to sleep or something on this session, you got your eyebrow got took off or something like that, right? And Digweed was asleep in Tony Allen's bed. So we were like, oh, let's just go storm his bedroom and shave his chest. So that's what that photograph is. I came off worse. It's all in my mouth and everything on that photograph. But yeah, because I became really good mates with Sasha, and before I'd even moved to Manchester, I met Sasha in like '89, and Tony Hannon was bringing him over to Leeds. In '89, I think actually. But
Did Tony Hannon come up to Manchester much?
Well, yeah, he used to come. He used to go to the Hacienda. Yeah. I don't know when actually though. I don't know if he was going before. I mean, he definitely used to go, and he used to come with us like later. But in my little honeymoon period of like say '89 to '92, he wasn't really going then.
Yeah.
I don't think, but I think he used to come before, because obviously him and Sasha were really good mates, and I didn't really know of Sasha until Tony started bringing him over as a DJ. Do you know what I mean? But
I bet that was amazing. You were the first person at Renaissance, weren't you?
I played the first ever set at the first ever Renaissance show. Well, I was resident there before Digweed. No one knew who Digweed was. So the original residents for Renaissance were me and Sasha,
Yeah. God,
that was
great. Amazing.
Yeah, it was, Yeah, it was. It was just one of them. Jackie said something in her video about the fact that we were all just living in the present moment, and it really was that. It's like, I don't ever remember putting dates in my diary and thinking, I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It weren't like that. It was like, I can't wait for this weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and then next weekend, and then next weekend. It wasn't that far thought out, do you know what I mean? And Renaissance just happened. My mate Jeff Oakes, that was his night. And me and Jeff were mates. We'd go see Sasha play at Shelley's in Stoke. Jeff lived in Stoke. Go back, have a crack on there, and then one day he was just like, I'm going to do this. I actually went with him to see the venue. We looked at a few venues.
Where was it? Where did
Venue
it start?
44 in Mansfield was the first.
Is that where it started?
Yeah, and it started in March '92.
Yeah.
And and he was there for about a year or so, I think, and then moved to Derby.
Yeah.
But yeah, so me and Sasha were the main two DJs, well, the only two. Yeah. And what they were doing really was it was a play on the Hacienda, really. It was kind of like a lot of soulful stuff. Sasha were doing his thing anyway, his ravey thing, but it wasn't prog. And they're booking a lot of American DJs that were playing there. But it kind of changed overnight. Famous story, Sasha went and played for John Digweed at Bedrock. But as far as I'm aware, I'd never heard of John Digweed. You know, I didn't know who he was. Sasha came back with his tape I was there when, this is supposed to be a documented little moment, a change in time where I never liked it, but that's a different story. But so there was a tape of John Digweed, and it was all this prog stuff, and he's a wicked mixer, and Sasha was like, we need to get him on. So Jeff was like, okay, let's get him on, and that was the time when I seen him do his first pill.
Yeah.
And so he came, played Renaissance, went down really well, and the music policy started to change from then. And then obviously Sasha and John got more pally and just started doing their thing as a duo.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you ever do the prog? Did you?
No, never. No, it was never my thing. I played a couple of bits that I guess were proggy at the time. You know, just trying out. I think I've always done, like, I'm always open to bits and bobs of things rather than jumping on a genre and going, I'm playing that. Do you know what I mean? But if there's a good record, that's a good record no matter what it is. And if you can get it in the mix and it doesn't sound too disjointed, I'd play it.
Yeah.
But no, I was never really into it. And I weren't really into like all that, the epic house and all that nonsense. And 2-minute intros are just sweeps and birds tweeting and no beat. That was never really my thing, which is probably why I didn't stay at Renaissance for too long, actually, because again, repeating patterns, a bit like my first leg at the Hacienda. I got sacked from Renaissance as well, but really I think it was just a bit of a little conspiracy because it was convenient for me to be there when it first started. Yeah. And then the reason why they said that I had to go was I was smoking a joint one night, and 10 City were playing, and they were on after me, and the manager of so I had to stay in the DJ booth because as you came out of the booth, you had to go down some like ladders onto the first layer of the stage. So that's where they were doing their PA. So obviously I couldn't go and walk through the stage while they're doing their thing. So I'm just stood there smoking this joint, but I used to do that every week anyway. And no one said anything. But the following week when I went back, they wouldn't let me in. Went back with my records. Yeah. They're like, no, you can't come in. I was like, why not? So I was smoking a joint last week. So that was that. And I don't think I ever really went back after that.
Smoking a joint, you wouldn't have thought that, would you?
No, I think really what it was the manager, or he was heavily instrumental in the club anyway. The guy, his brother was Nigel Dawson, who then became, so the residents, because what happened was, it was me and Sasha, then I got Digweed, but at the same time there's another guy from Leeds called Ian Hacienda, who played very much, who would love Sasha and play, but he was good at what he did, but he was totally that thing. He was fully prog and all that, and he became a big resident for Renaissance in the club and on the tours and all that. And the other resident was a guy called Nigel Dawson, who was also prog, but he was the brother of like the manager of the club, so he kind of took my place, and I think that's what it was really. Yeah. And also, I guess musically, I wasn't doing what they were doing either. Really.
It's mad how the DJs became superstars because I didn't care who was DJing. I was fascinated by the people in there, but I wasn't bothered. Like I'll have been in Hacienda and Sasha's been playing, and but I had a period of, I lived in Leeds for a while, and I went back to basics, and I bet Brandon Black was playing there, wasn't he?
Well, Brandon used to play. He didn't really play for. He didn't play for basics. He used to play for Up Your Ronson, but he was a resident for Up Your Ronson. But it was the same venue, so well, I'm guessing it's where both Basics and Ronson started was a club in Leeds called the Music Factory.
Did it move to the pleasure rooms?
Yeah. They both moved to the pleasure rooms, Ronson and Basics. Yeah. But Basics started November '91 at the Music Factory, and then Ronson started the following year, not long after. So you'd have Ronson on a Friday, Basics on a Saturday. So they didn't really step on each other's toes with DJs. So Brandon was a Ronson DJ really.
Yeah. But there's a picture of you in Ibiza, isn't there? You, Brandon Black,
and Simon Bentley from Skunk Records.
Yeah. Is that how it is?
Yeah. He was a good lad. He used to come. Loads of people from London used to come up to Leeds every week. I mean, I had the best of both worlds because I had a foot in each. I'd already moved, because when I moved from Leeds to Manchester, there wasn't really anything happening in Leeds. There were no Basics. There were nothing yet. There were no solid big house night that were there every week, which is why I moved to Manchester. One of the reasons. But then when those things started happening, obviously, firstly, they were like, my mates and stuff like that, and also in like my old city. So I'd be coming from Manchester. Sometimes I'd play the Hacienda on a Friday. I'd play Dry first, then go play the Hass, and then go play Ronson afterwards and stuff. And loads of people from Manchester used to come, there'd be coaches. I used to have staff nights out from the Hacienda, go to the Corn Exchange to a soak or something like that. So
Is the Corn Exchange still there?
it is, yeah, it's still there, yeah.
I think someone died at it, didn't it? So.
Oh, did they? I don't know.
Because it just, when I was a student, it had just finished soak. I think something had happened and it didn't, it wasn't on anymore.
But that photograph you're talking about was the first, so that was Tony Annan.
Yeah.
They did an Up Your Ronson over there. And they had Sasha, Reel to Reel, did a PA, Nightmares on Wax did a PA. I think Nightmares on Wax did the first ever PA on Space Terrace. Up until that point, they'd never had a big event on. It wasn't really a club, do you know, like it became with outside promoters in there every night of the week and all that.
Yeah.
It worked like that. And that's what that photograph's from, is from that. But there was like me there, me, Marshall, who was Ronson resident, Alistair Whitehead, Sasha, Mark Arbach, who was Bump, I'm Rushing. He's an amazing DJ, him as well. He's like really, really good producer, but like such an underrated DJ. He was like really good. In fact, just to digress, I remember going, it was actually the Hacienda night at the Ministry. He did Mark, because he became really good friends with Sasha. And I remember just thinking, he's the only DJ down here that mixes like someone up north.
Yeah.
Cockneys won't like that, but do you know what I mean? We prided ourselves on like being able to hold a mix and do something with it. Right, a lot of what was happening down there, what I found was a bit sloppy, and you know what I mean. But Mark had that. I was like, you sound like a northerner.
do you know, like going back when you said before, like about the birthday party? Yeah. That picture of yours is amazing.
Oh right, yeah. That's from the so that's the press photograph for the 11th birthday. Yeah. But I was like, I mean, I look about 9 on it or something, don't I? But I was on my knees that day because that day was my 21st. Yeah. But I'd started celebrating the night before, and we had a good friend called Bridget, who I'd met in Ibiza when I met Jackie and everybody else. Bridget was there. And she wasn't from Manchester, but she also moved to Manchester. She ended up managing Baby Cheerleaders opposite the G-Mex. Yeah. So she was a manageress of that. And we had a lock-in on my birthday, and I got lagging. It was funny because Jackie, when Jackie was talking about when we all lived in St James's Park, and she mentioned the guy that she lived with, and that night, I was so drunk that I'd ended up naked. I think kinky calf and that. They took me clothes off, and I was riding this mountain bike around Jackie's flat, which I'd not been in at this point, and I'd never met the guy that she lived with. And I went into his bedroom and like did a wheelie onto his bed, like no clothes on, and he's with his girlfriend, got oil all over his quilt and stuff. And then the next thing, I just remember like waking up and just thinking like, like in my flat, because like this was all in Redmyres Court. In St James's Park, I lived in Redmyres, and I remember just waking up and just thinking, oh God, I feel rough. And then the phone rung. I think it was Angela Matthews, the manager, the licensee of the Hass, and she was like, you've got to get to the club for this photo shoot, like now. And I was like, oh God, so I got a taxi, you know, mouth watering, spitting out the window and that, I'm like, I'm going to be sick. And like on those photographs, I'm on death's door. And
I know to look at that again.
Yeah, I was dying. And I think it was Jay, and so there were some photographs of me basically. I never saw them, and I didn't want to see them, you know. Yeah. I was like the village idiot that night. I was like, get him doing this, get him doing that. I was paralytic, just turning 21, taking photographs of me. And Bless Hands was like, we can't have this, Hacienda DJ. I want the photographs and the negatives, and got them and gave 2 birthday tickets to Jay, I think it was, for it. So no one got to see him, and I didn't get to see him, and I got shredded. And that was that.
Did you ever have an album? Like everyone, I just think when you mentioned Renaissance before, like there was Renaissance CDs, weren't there, at the time? And was there a Buckley album? Did you have a CD that came out?
I did a CD, yeah. It's not one of my proudest moments, if I'm honest. It's from the mid-90s. It's from about 96, I think. And I used to be resident at Love to Be in Sheffield. Yeah. And they did one. It came out through a company called Firm Music, I think. So I was a resident for them. I used to play twice a month, I think. When I was living in Manchester, I used to go play Sheffield, play Love to Be twice a month. Excuse me. And myself and Tony Walker were residents, so we mixed the CD. I'm getting a flash here already. So I mixed the CD. But what I liked about that was, so I picked all the tracks for it, and I was pretty responsible in licensing them all, because back then it was completely different. You know, it was all vinyl, and you had personal relationships with the mailing companies that were sending you the music. You know, whoever was dealing with A&R for whatever company it was, you knew who they were, and they knew you. You're on the mailing list, you're ringing them up. Have you got that promo for so-and-so? Oh, no, we've only got 25. You're going to have to wait for the next lot or whatever. So I'd signed a lot of the tracks and stuff like that for it. And then it just shows how times are different. Like now, you could just knock that mix up upstairs, record it, send a digital link, and that was that. But they booked a big studio for us in London. Again, I'd mugged it. I'd been out the night before. We're on my knees on the train on the way to London to mix this CD with all my vinyl. And but the funny thing was, it's like I can't listen to it now because it's just so fast.
Yeah.
You know, I think it starts at like 1:30, but it's like loads of vocal and handbaggy stuff, and like there's loads of masters at work and some cool stuff on there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, God, if you're going to start at 1:30, then we're like, where are you going to go? But I can listen to it now because I can slow it down on a CDJ. But it was pretty cool being able to go in HMV and see it on the shelf.
Yeah.
You know.
So that flashing there, that's like getting near the end now.
Last orders.
Last orders at the bar, yeah. So like I always like to end it with like pick a favourite. I know it's hard to do it, but pick a cool house track. Pick a favourite house track.
Well,
try and beat Jackie.
Well, do you know what? Well, you've spoiled it for me because I'd already thought about this, and I was probably going to go for Phase 2 Reaching.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's kind of impossible to pick a fave, right? But I loved all the vocal stuff. Eddie named them all. He nailed it all.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that he was saying. I was like, yep. But I also liked all the tunes that kind of around that time, 89 and a bit before. There's a lot of tunes that kind of had a message in them about love and unity and coming together, and you know, we're going to get through this, and with a message. Songs like Jay Williams, Sweat. Yeah. Phase 2 Reaching, obviously CC Rogers, Someday, you know, obviously Want to Be Joe, Smooth, Promised Land, Motherland, Clubland, you know, loads of great messages in these tracks. And so I was thinking I was going to go for Phase 2 Reaching. But what I am going to go for, a little curveball, is a Diva, Musical Freedom.
Oh, right.
Right,
Yeah.
Because I've got a memory of being at Live the Dream, and it was on the Sunday. So Live the Dream was the first rave I'd ever been to in a field, and I don't know, there's like 15,000 people or something, still in 89. And Jam MCs were playing on the Sunday, and I can't remember which way around it was, but they either played Phase 2 Reaching and then Musical Freedom, or the other way around. Yeah. Both tunes have got the same sentiment, right? You know, it was all about everything I just said. Yeah. And I remember just, you know, feeling amazing. I mean, I wanted to talk more about the fact of like those first E's and the difference is like what you felt. There's a scene in the movie Rise of the Foot Soldier, right, where the main character in it, the foot soldier, the guy wants to give him a pill, and he's like, "Nah, mate, I don't take drugs," and the guy goes, "No, this ain't a drug, it's love." Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's what it was. And I think it definitely like changed things and opened you up on a different level. And it worked so well with the music. So when there were like those kind of messages and feeling love in a way that again, it never came. That thing never came with the pills again after, like I said, I don't think from that little drought onwards, when it changed from that, there was something missing. Yeah. I think.
So thanks so much,
thank you, mate.
We'll stop. I think I can do it off my watch. We'll stop recording.